wale walio katika judiciary, wale walio katika legislature, nataka niwaulize, jameni, tuungane, tuwache mashindano.
As the leadership of Kenya Kwanza, we shall not agree and frustrate the policies and the plan of William Samoei Ruto.
I will not tell you what we will do with them, but we shall deal with the ignorance of the judiciary. I have never failed you, and I will not fail you on this one.
Is what we call judicial adventurism. People who have gone beyond the reach of what they are supposed to do.
Those of you who are leaders in the judiciary, in the executive, in the legislature, you will be judged.
But somebody must also hold them to account. And they also must be accountable. And they must also accept to be held to account. We want to ask the judiciary that let them put the interest of the nation ahead of any other consideration, so that they can be able to be part and parcel of an arm of government that is supporting the transformation of our country.
Mjue wananchi wanaumia. Na kama hamutarekebisha hii msafara, usicheze na wananchi.
We are going to deal firmly with vested interests and impunity, and we are going to deal decisively with corruption in whatever shade, in whichever institution.
We are ready to process any complaints against any judge or judicial officer who is implicated in corruption or in any other acts of misconduct.
I'll personally present a petition before Lady Chief Justice Martha Koome against Justice Esther Maina for her removal from the judiciary for misconduct and corruption.
Nani huyu atasimama mbele ya kasi na plan ya president? Mambo ya afya, mtu akufe kwa sababu ya saratani, ati kwa sababu ni judiciary. Tumesema, jinsi mwingine alisema juzi, tutapita na hawa.
Wanataka kwenda kupinga kila kitu ili after 5 years waseme ulisema utafanya affordable housing. Ulisema universal cover na hujafanya.
Nobody should threaten us. Nobody should blackmail Kenya anymore. We want to move the country forward.
Najua kwa nini unakemea mahakama. Kwa sababu mahakama imesema ile ushuru natoa wa Kenya ya nyumba, it is unconstitutional.
We are saying, as your foot soldiers, Your Excellency, we are behind you. We are going to deal with them from today going forward.
Ruto now wants to intimidate, subdue, and capture the judiciary. We want the judges not to hear cases against his policies, dismiss such cases, or always rule in his favor.
The matter of independence of our judiciary is not negotiable. Cannot even, in fact, I want to say, we put a stop to this thing. Kama executive nataka kuendelea kupiga kelele, waendelee, but let the judicial arm of government continue working.
The conversation we are having about corruption and impunity in the judiciary has nothing to do with the independence of the judiciary.
Let us root out the few who are corrupt in the judiciary.
We are going to be clear, we are going to be decisive, because for far too long, Kenya has been held hostage by incompetence, vested interests, and corruption.
The judiciary has no monopoly to superimpose their independence on other arms of government. Parliament is independent, the executive is independent, and therefore they must respect the independence of Parliament and of the executive.
I must accept that corruption is endemic, and it is a big, big problem. But the way to deal with it is to do it through established institutions.
All right, state capture. Uhuru Matiangi also to be quizzed. They are not stopping just at the judiciary. They'll hack back into also the previous regime as well. Kenyatta and a host of his senior state officials will be key witnesses. Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah preparing state capture commission bill. This is on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. There you are. Uhuru and Matiangi targeted in the state capture investigation. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta and top guns in his administration could soon be put on their defense for their acts of omission or commission. While at the helm of the state power, the state has established that a state capture commission of inquiry is in the works to probe claims of abuse of power by top officers in the former regime. And this story continues also on page 4. And these are the faces so far as it's being splashed here inside the Star. Jubilee top guns likely to face a commission. We have the face of former President Uhuru Kenyatta. We have former Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiangi. We have Chief of the Defense Forces Francis Ogola, and also ex-Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibiso. Also, we have ex-Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai. Some of the faces there. But we want just to, as we're finalizing on our discussion, and Jabura, can see your face here as well. It seems the Star was speaking your mind on this. State must be clear on scope of inquiry. We shall also hear from you as well. But let's just go back to those statements, first of all, as we're winding up on the issue of judiciary, where we can see the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Gladys Boss-Chole, saying that she will deal decisively with what she calls the ignorance of the judiciary. What really constitutes the ignorance of the judiciary? Senate Council.
I don't know, but I thought Gladys Boss-Chole should be really the last person to condemn judges and the judiciary. She herself has been, a candidate in our courts, and it's the courts that made a ruling that has given her the freedom that she enjoys today. The same thing with Honorable Chepkonga, MP for Anapkoi. So, and the two are lawyers, very seasoned lawyers. So I get fairly disappointed when I see lawyers making some utterances. But I don't know. When you are a lawyer and you know tomorrow you may appear before a judge, when you are telling the country that you are going to deal with the ignorance of the judiciary, I think it's the other way around. It's you who looks ignorant, because as lawyers we know that judges are literally institutions unto themselves. In a country where there is order, where there is rule of law, you submit to the authority of the courts. Once the courts make a decision, if you are dissatisfied, you move to the next court, and once the final court makes a decision, you abide. What the JIC is calling anarchy, the way I understand anarchy, anarchy is a situation where individuals or communities, choose to govern themselves in the way they know best how. You don't submit to a central authority. And for us here, a central authority is our courts. When we have issues, we go to the courts, you present your case, your adversary will present their case, and when the court makes a decision, you respect it. And I think what I'm seeing is taking us back to what I used to see in Kanu days, under President Moi. When Moi was facing an issue that was very popular with Kenyans, may it be an agitation to repeal the then very unpopular Section 2A, he would mobilize members of parliament, go to the countryside and say, money has been poured to finish me. The West countries want to finish my government. That's what I'm seeing. People have been mobilized. They have gone to rallies and they're making pronouncements without interrogating what is the issue at hand. Honorable Kenan will tell you that the bill that is pending in Parliament is the one that is laying a framework on how to deduct the housing levy money from Kenyans. So the High Court, which I think is a very reasonable decision, made a pronouncement that you cannot tax Kenyans for housing levy when there is no legal framework. Basically, they are saying there is no act of parliament allowing you to tax Kenyans. Now, Parliament has published that law, okay? The law is making a proposal how a certain percentage of money deducted will be taken to the National Housing Corporation. Another one will be used to have slum upgrades. another percentage to be taken to the ministry dealing with housing. I don't know, 2% to be given to the board that will manage the issue of affordable housing, which is an acknowledgement to the court that really there is no legal framework. So when you are taxing this money and using it, what is the legal basis for the government to tax us? That's what we should be debating. And then you have a court in, I think, Kisumu or Kakamega, I may not be very sure, that has said put a stop to the issue of public participation till you put an advert that complies with what the standards the court has set on public participation. Instead of going to the court and saying, look, in our next process, we are going to comply, you stand up and tell the country that we are going to defy court orders. Where does that take the country? I must confess, from where I am, I'm a very scared person, really, as a person, because you may think that you are just dealing with judges, but you are actually destroying the country. This message, these newspapers, when they are read by investors, there is no investor that will put his money in a country that you can take to the bank, Honorable Kenan, to a country where explicitly you can see there is no respect for rule of law, there is no respect for court orders. Because they will say, they will submit to a tender, maybe they will go to court, they will win, and the government will tell you will not respect that court decision. So what we are doing is a deeper problem than what we are seeing on the surface. We are not just destroying the institution called the judiciary. We are also creating an environment, investment environment, that will be very, very unattractive to investors. If you go to Rwanda, the country is fairly calm, you know. The arbitration, you will talk to Kenyan business people. They go to Rwanda, if there is an arbitration, a tribunal will deal with the arbitration. You go to court, a court decision is made, and there is order. But if we go this way, we are destroying the country. Finally, I want to make an appeal to my friend, Honorable Kenan. You know, we are members of parliament. We have a constituency we represent as a people. There is a time when you ring a bell and call for sobriety hour. And I think the sobriety hour has come now. We need to tell the president that you cannot be an institution unto yourself. In a football team, you cannot be the goalkeeper. You can't play center back. You play right full back. You are a midfielder. You are a striker. You are everything. It cannot work. Let him be a president who acknowledges that we have parliament, we have the judiciary, he has his attorney general, he has independent bodies like Judicial Service Commission. When all these bodies are telling you what you are doing, Mr. President, is against the Constitution, pause back. You are not a one-man band guitar. You are leading a country that has all these institutions acting in the best interest of Kenyans. You pause, take a break, and allow the rule of law to be the one that is guiding your governance in a country. Otherwise, if you continue this way, I can tell you, this country will degenerate to a level that we will all live to regret.
Right. Well, first of all, also the issue of the illegality of this public participation that is happening. You want to comment on that briefly?
Yes. In legal terms, we would not say it's illegal, but it's unlawful.
It's unlawful.
It's unlawful to the extent that the courts have directly pronounced themselves against public participation, and the two committees of the National Assembly are purporting to go ahead and conduct that very public participation. I saw the leader of majority trying to split hairs by saying that what the court pronounced itself was against receiving memoranda, but that these committees are going to hear views. That is, that is a distinction without a difference. It is simply a situation, unfortunately, where the House leadership has allowed the executive to determine what happens in Parliament, and since the president has voted to disobey court orders, the two committees have taken that cue and they are going ahead in defiance of the court order. Unfortunately, all the public money they are going to spend in those hearings will go to naught, because the product of an unlawful process cannot be lawful. I have voiced my opinion insofar as it can be voiced, But of course, as we've all said here, Parliament is fully captured, and contrary opinion is usually not listened to until and unless it goes to court and the court pronounces itself, and I think it's quite unfortunate. But I don't know whether you want me to
we'll come to the state capture. Before I want to
capture.
hear a very loaded statement is,
Yes.
product of unlawful process cannot be lawful. Honorable Kenya.
Yes, that's a legal statement.
That's a legal statement.
That's a legal statement.
You want to give a political statement to it?
I'm saying that's a legal statement with different interpretations.
With different interpretations.
Depending on the vested interest, depending on the legal mind, depending on the legal orientation, and so many other things. That's why we say there are as many opinions as there are lawyers. That I can tell you. You can take it to the bank. So that is his opinion.
But given that
precedent, let me not subject. He's my good friend.
No, but it's raised a good point that now we are in this day and time when we're talking about a wastage of money and resources. Should we be going to the 19 counties and we know all this?
You have asked me a question. Let me answer in the way that I understand.
Okay, fine.
A parliamentary process. Parliament is a quasi-judicial institution. I have an jurisdictional and interpretational problem on whether Parliament can be injected. And I've looked at the legislative history of almost all parliaments. Ordinarily, judicial officers restrain themselves actually injecting Parliament. Ordinarily. Because that's a deliberative house. But what they do is they wait for Parliament to make a decision and interpret the outcome of that particular decision. But you are told Parliament has been injuncted. So that debate will be for a different day. But let me say this, Debal. We have run away from imperial presidency. We will not also allow judicial activism to replace the same. You must accept that we have three traditional arms of government. Which one comes and which one comes last will be for a different day. And each must respect the other. Each must also restrain and ensure that you don't become an impediment to the functioning of that particular okay, whether it is the judiciary or whether it's parliament or whether it is. But in Kenya, where we have now every group depending on how they look at things. I was in the 10th parliament. I'll tell you, I was privileged to be in the 10th parliament under the Grand Coalition. And I will tell you, an instruction was given by the office of the Prime Minister then, not for committee chair, for ministers, not to handle many parliamentary summons. And I can take you to the parliamentary answer. And we had to reverse. The person who was doing then was the then Prime Minister, and say, look, he didn't come to the floor of the House and say, look, members of Parliament are harassing ministers, and therefore he has asked ministers not to honor the many summons and invitation from. You see, depending on where you are at that particular time, if you sweep the law, then we'll have an interpretational problem. That's why right now we are saying, and I will repeat this, I will always support the judiciary where they are right, and I will not allow blanket condemnation of the judiciary. But I'll be the first one to point out corrupt elements within, and these two things must be separated. Because right now we have mixing so many things. The president has said he will not allow corrupt elements from whichever group to derail his development agenda. I associate myself with that particular statement because he should be allowed to implement his manifesto. If every bit that he does, and we need to understand this. And we also know the way these things work. So right now where we are, Parliament is being told not to act in this particular manner. The executive is being told in this manner. And the whole thing is laden with politics. My only appeal is, we may not agree on everything. And I'll tell you the reason why I will not subscribe to, because if, I have seen the presidency under Moi. I have seen the presidency under Kibaki. I have seen the president under Kibaki, Raila. I've seen the president first term of Uhuru, Ruto. I've seen also the second term of the handshake between Uhuru and Raila. And right now we are seeing Ruto. And therefore I can amplify and say, and put it in perspective, that these are the comparables. Where we are right now, regardless of your political persuasion, if truly you don't believe in the presidency of William Ruto, you will not see anything good If you believe in the presidency of Ruto, you will see so many things changing. That's why right now even this drastic decline of the Kenya shillings. I brought a law, and I think I want to, in 2009 and 2010, we established a select committee where I was the chairman on the drastic decline of the Kenya shilling. And I'll tell you the findings. The findings were cartel-oriented, cartel-based, and ultimately, out of those recommendations, my friend, what gave birth to the current structure of the central bank and most parts of the PMF Act. That is the way we are supposed to be progressive. So I want to appeal to my friends here, very seasoned, very good lawyers, and I know in their own wisdom, they will have to say what they want to say. If we want to change things, let's do it in Parliament. I like the way what Honorable Otieno Amolo did. It was limited to the floor of the House in the last Parliament. Superb, great thing. But right now, because of the politics.
Thank you.
Listen to this. Because of the politics, if whatever thing that comes out, whether it's wrong or not, as long as it's not part of your political persuasion, we condemn, it's not going to work. I want to appeal to them. Let's believe in our national interest. Let's believe in the national well-being. The national well-being is, let's be restrained. Let the judiciary restrain themselves. And we have a problem with the application of conservative orders, restraining orders left and right. I remember during Justice Maraga's time, those guidance. Of course, the courts have every right, every jurisdiction. Those guidance, I'm told, that when there's an urgent application for conservatory or restraining orders, there should be an opportunity for the other side to respond. These days, you just walk anywhere, get an order, and the next thing, that should not be allowed to happen. As much as nobody will infringe on the independence of judicial officers.
Let's run upon it. Dan Mazo, your comments briefly. We want to put it, and then we go to the state capture.
You can see.
Sorry, on the state capture.
Yeah, we'll come to the state. This is where but I want him to comment just briefly. Then we go to Otiende on the state capture. I know Congo Mogeni is got a flight to catch. He'll be leaving us in 10 minutes. I think we'll begin with you. Then we continue briefly.
Yes, sir.
Dan Mazo.
It needs to sort out the best in Gusila Nazanala.
You know, on the state capture, I think those days really there was no state capture. This is imagined. The state capture is now. This is the time there is state capture, capture of judiciary, capture of parliament, and the executive has also captured itself. And that's why you see the fall of the shilling. You know, even from that cartoon, you can see that, you know, where Ruto and Rigathi are taking the 6 shilling is not known in the wilderness. You see from the cartoon, it's just, so the state capture is now, and the economy of the country is very, very important. This is where Kenyans have a very big problem with, first of all, a bad law. Then you have the shilling falling. You know, wrong economic decisions and over taxation, which means you kill small businesses, and then also many people are not using fuel where the country is supposed to be drawing more of the monies. You see it from the taxes. So when people have stopped using fuel as they used to do, if somebody used to have a big car, now they use a small car or use a Uber or work from the house or just walk instead of taking a boda. Or use, you know, donkeys to carry things instead of using a tractor or a lorry. So that has really caused a big problem, and I think the real state capture is being done by the current government. What happened those days, really? Parliament passed decisions, and I remember those days President Uhuru was very careful not to interfere with state functions or functionaries or institutions. But right now, we are having weak institutions. At the moment you have weak institutions, weak judiciary, weak, weak parliament, then you really, really have a problem. And the only decision we have made independently as Senate was a Kawira decision. Most of other decisions, the government will always mobilize and interfere, mobilize Senate in a certain way, get the desired results. Then National Assembly, the same, which is led by Honorable Ishungwa himself. So he should be suing himself, but not bothered with, you're not going to form a commission to investigate something which is in the past and which will not really get anywhere.
Right. Let's come to you, Congo Bogini, before you leave. Then You can tell us your input on the state capture and this particular state capture commission bill. If it sails through, of course, the National Assembly, it will come to Senate as well.
I don't know. Nowadays, so many things can happen. Even where you expect a lot to come to Senate, instructions will be given, which is a very unfortunate, thing. That you want to control all independent institutions to the detriment of the country. I've said before that if you assume leadership, look at the front mirror, not the rear mirror. The energy that Kimani Ichung'wah, my friend, is wasting in setting up commissions to look into the regime of President Uhuru it will be a very unpopular thing, even in his own backyard of Kiambu. Once you lift the Bible and place it down, we want you to deal with the table economics of Kenyans. We want you to be a retail government that resonates with the people. What the inquiry that Honorable Kimani should be setting up is to tell us why we have a free fall on the Kenyan shilling, now trading as 166 against the dollar, while our neighboring countries have a very stable currency. That's what we should be happening. That's the kind of inquiry we need. We need to know, Dibal, why the Kenyan farmers are yet to realize the promises that were made by UDA, that agriculture will be transformed, there will be value addition, and that there will be more money in the pocket of Kenyans. My people of Nyamira, and I believe even from Kenan comes from, wants to know where are the jobs that the president promised the Kenyan youths. That's what Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah should be telling us. Kenan, a commission of inquiry that we need is for us to know why we have endemic corruption from the executive. What happened to the oil scandal? Tell us. That's what we need to hear. Those are the problems that Kenyans are facing. That's what we want to hear, not this thing of telling us that you want to go back. President Uhuru Kenyatta did what he did. His record, the jury is out there. Historians will tell us about him. Don't concentrate so much on the former regime. You have acquired the tag of a blame game regime. This will haunt you up to the ballot in 2027. Sit back and deliver the promises you've made to Kenyans. Dibal, you know, I was talking to people in Nyamira. Even a simple thing like collection of tea from tea buying centers is taking two days. Insecurity in Nyamira. Should the government be wasting time about state capture instead of addressing issues of insecurity that is facing Kenyans? We are getting it all wrong. I saw the First Lady in church somewhere praying. I hope she's going to pray for the president, her dear husband, to put the interest of taking this country forward than these blame games. This will not take us anywhere. There will not be a legacy for the president that he had a commission of inquiry to look at state capture. That will not take us anywhere. Let him concentrate on fighting corruption within the executive. Let him have proper advice on how to run a country on economics. Let him create an attractive environment for investors so that we can compete with countries like Rwanda, which is posing a big threat to us in terms of attracting investors. That will be my submission this morning to the president. And then respect that we were all given 2 ears and one mouth so that you can listen more and speak less. We have gone back to the Moi regime where every day you see the president speaking every day from Monday to Monday. Let him also listen to us as parliamentarians. We have been elected to be the people's representatives. Let him also pause and listen. We come here to speak because we want him to also listen. I'm speaking on behalf of the people of Nyamira who elected me. When I go to parliament, I'm speaking on behalf of the people of Nyamira. Let him also open his ears and listen to us. But this idea, as Otiende Amola is saying, where you have a terrible government that wants to impose everything on, you make everything adversarial. You know, something like housing levy in civilized democracies, this should be a bipartisan. You know, when you bring this levy, we'll give you examples what happens in other jurisdictions. Dibali, if you go to Australia, they support Australians to own houses, but not the way you are doing it. The government looks at the vulnerable group, Dibal, first new owners, and then it will give you money. It gives you $10,000 as a deposit towards purchase of your house. We started the housing agenda by Jubilee, that they were going to build houses for the hustlers, people in the slum areas, the Mamamboga. Now you listen to the president, he says the housing agenda is to create jobs for the youths. Now he has forgotten about the hustlers, the Mamamboga, and the likes. I want to tell you, let's compare notes next year when we come here. There will be no hustler, no Mamamboga, no boda boda who will benefit from this housing agenda that UDA has. The beneficiaries will still be the friends within the system. Those who still have it will have more houses. But these guys who queued to vote for the president, the Mamamboga, the hustler, the guy in the slum, will not benefit from this housing levy. So allow us to have a debate, a bipartisan debate. Don't impose your views on us, so that when we come up with a product, it's a product that incorporates the views of all Kenyans.
Right, thank you. All right.
So, Dibali,
yes.
you can.
You agree with the people of
You can.
I want you to hear this.
You can excuse
before
me.
Before it goes, we need to take a short break so that.
Yeah.
I want
you can.
Okay.
Yes. You can
one
whisper to
second.
me.
No, I want him to hear this. He's a seasoned lawyer. He's also an experienced legislator. I think first of all, what we are doing is speculation. We have not seen the gist of this particular bill. And in parliamentary practice, if I was the chair, I will rule him out of order. Because he knows what I'm talking about, because you cannot speculate. You wait for the bill, the stages of the bill you understand, and then you make your own informed decision, because luckily there's going to be public participation. It's not an honorable Chunga is just going to bring in through the window. So to that extent, I'll only say I see a bit of, sometimes you say the guilty are afraid. This, whether it will be applied to the past, the present, or the future, it's something that we always. So let's leave it there. When we see the bill, you have every right to say you don't agree. I like the way Honorable attend and normally, diligently attends to parliamentary issues. You can even have a one-man or one-woman minority report on the way Honorable Kaluma did actually recently on the IT. So let's leave our parliamentary mandate to Parliament. When we reach there, I don't believe in lamenting as a parliamentarian.
No. You know,
just a minute. So that I will leave it there.
No. What I've said.
Come back to the week sheet.
We'll go to the week sheet. He has to go. He has to go.
You know, this is what I said. What I said, and it's a fact. The bill that is before the House.
Have you seen it?
I've seen it.
Where is it? Give us a copy.
I can give you.
Yes.
I have it.
Read.
I can read for you.
Yes.
It is a bill that is supposed to set
This is the first reading. This is the first. Is the publication.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, let me help you.
How many other states are
The
left?
plan is addressing a different matter from what
No.
was talking about.
Dibal.
You are talking about this state capture.
No, I'm talking about the state capture, not the housing bill.
Yes.
I'm talking about the state capture.
No.
Not the housing.
No. You have challenged me. Allow me to
On the
answer to you.
state capture. This other one we have all seen.
So
the state capture
no.
bill.
You are telling
have
me.
you seen a copy?
I've told you the bill is here. I can tell you.
Which
bill
is this?
The one published on 4th of December 2023.
Which one? The housing.
Yes, the housing.
I'm talking about the state capture. This one we have all seen. It was
See now you wanted to challenge me on housing, and I've shown you it
I
is
wanted
here.
to challenge you on the state capture.
Okay.
Dibal, I'm a lawyer. I don't just make wild statements on this media. When I speak with facts.
Where is the
bill
state
is
capture?
here.
You have alluded to the state capture.
The idea I told you is that Dibal.
Just a moment.
Dibal, the fact is this.
Maybe let's forgive him because he's in a rush.
No. Dibal, allow me to state. You know I'm a lawyer. My clients are watching me on this show. What I said, and it is here.
No,
this is the first time.
Just hold on.
This is the first time, Dibal, that the way Tenda Molo told you, the government is taxing Kenyans without a legislation that is giving them the power to tax Kenyans.
Agreed, but you commented on
Just
both.
a minute. The government has owned up that it cannot tax Kenyans through an amendment of the Employment Act. That's a fact. The government has now proposed a legislation that is laying a framework on how it proposes to tax Kenyans. This bill is pending before the House. This bill is subject to a court order that is saying hold public participation. So as we speak here, Dibal, and I'm a Christian, you are a Muslim, the government is taxing Kenyans, and we are honorable members. The government is taxing Kenyans without a legislation that is giving them power.
The Court of Appeal allowed the government to continue. So
you see, I was right.
So there are two conflicting court decisions, isn't it? One by an inferior court, another by the superior court. The superior court is telling the government, go ahead until 2025 when they will make a decision. Another court of a large jurisdiction is telling them, stop it.
I think it's a misnomer. You call it an inferior court.
A junior court.
As we allow Honorable Mogeni to go,
I need to take a short break. I need to take a short break.
When we come back, we'll
clarify so that we don't confuse Kenyans as well. And the fact that you raise a very important point that we should not really comment about this commission bill is the fact also the majority leader himself is having a press conference or is having a an audience with the media on that particular same bill before he has even tabled it. Yeah,
he's the originator.
He's the originator. So
yes, his own was conceived the idea. Yes,
because he's the originator and he's spoken about it. Can we take a short break? Let's take a short break.
This is public participation.
Allow me to take a short break. We take a short break. When we circle back, of course, we continue with the tail end of the program. Don't go away. You're watching Siasa Fiesta.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
Here comes the grand event of Africa. Africa Cup of Nations 2023. Watching all the stars of 24 countries for one champion. See traditional powerhouses defending their glory.
Perfect cutback.
And watch out.
He tried to cross it in.
Dark horses are racing for the top.
Surely the winner.
Try your best and lift the trophy. Start Time Sports. Beyond passion.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
All right, Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah preparing State Capture Commission bill, and this is targeting Uhuru Kenyatta and Matiangi. Also, we have the Chief of Defense. This is General Francis Ogola, who is currently the Chief of Defense. What does this really portend? Kenyatta and a host of his senior state officials will be key witnesses. This is an exclusive with the Star. Jabura, I want you just to comment on it. This is Senior Otende Amolo, who is a member of Parliament of Rarieda. On this state capture, because I can see also you've given a commentary inside the Star as well on this. It would be nice to just hear from you firsthand. State must clear on scope of inquiry.
Thank you. As I was leaving Morgan, I was hoping that the First Lady would pray for her husband and the executive. My own view is that we should avoid these prayers, because clearly all prayers since this regime took over are either not reaching or we get the opposite result. Either the persons praying are not the right persons or the way they are praying. You know, before. So I think maybe we should just let the church be and the state be.
The Bible says they are praying amiss. Are they praying amiss?
Clearly. You even remember there was a time they were hired preachers who were praying, I think about 100 of them, every week in State House, and every week they prayed something would go wrong. Secondly, in fact, that should be one of the issues of state capture. But the second thing is about the injunction, and we must be very clear. Honorable Aden Kenan says that there was a time there was guidance issued to the judiciary, you know, against issuing injunction. Clearly, that's what they would want, and that's exactly what not to do. The Chief Justice cannot guide judicial officers on how to execute their mandate. They have no such authority. And any attempt to do that in itself would be an infringement of the independence of the judiciary. I am a member of Parliament, and I've said this both inside Parliament and outside Parliament for the longest. When Parliament is executing its legislative mandate, courts ought to restrain themselves from interfering because they do not know what the outcome will be.
Yes.
But once Parliament is done executing its mandate, then it's the exclusive jurisdiction of the courts to interpret the legality and constitutionality of what Parliament has done. That is why the judiciary did not interfere when we were debating the finance bill and all. But once it was passed, it was right for the judiciary to interpret, and it properly found that parts of it were unconstitutional. There's nothing wrong with that. That is different from when Parliament is executing a quasi-judicial mandate, because we also have that mandate. For example, if it's a process of removal of a holder of a certain office, like when they tried to remove the former Auditor General, on that, the courts can interfere even before you reach your conclusion, if you are doing things that are clearly not in tandem with the law. That is the distinction. The third clarity is this. On affordable housing, Honorable Kenan is saying that a superior court said you can continue collecting funds, an inferior court is saying you cannot do public participation. Let's be very clear. The first problem with this situation of affordable housing and even the health sector amendment laws is that this regime is probating and approbating. First, the president and his cohort are attacking the judiciary for finding these laws unconstitutional. But at the same time, they are doing what the court said, which is you must have a foundational law. So they have now drafted legislation that is supposed to cure that. The easiest thing would have been this: to admit and apologize to Kenyans that they were wrong. We then come into a discussion of what is to be done of the funds that were unconstitutionally collected. Then we can debate the merits and demerits of the bill as they have now brought it, which is what they should have done in the first place. But here they are condemning the judiciary for that finding. They are appealing that very decision, yet they're also trying to comply with that very decision. Total confusion. Let's come to the question of state capture. First, I've given my preliminary comments when I was called by the Star on that matter. There are three aspects. First, I think this is diversionary, and it's an art this regime is trying to master. When things become very difficult and there are difficult questions that cannot be dealt with, they need to bring something else out of the ordinary to divert public attention and capture people's attention away from the spiraling cost of living, away from the runaway Kenya shilling, away from all these difficulties that have been created since this regime came in. And I think they believe that if you bring something like that, some sort of inquiry on state capture, you parade Matiangi, you parade Uhuru, you parade the current chief of defense forces and all that, then it will divert attention from the real problems. Secondly, clearly they have not conceived what is it they want to do, okay? There are two types of inquiries. You can have an executive commission of inquiry. You can have a parliamentary inquiry. The clearest example is the Uhuru unfortunate murder situation. An executive commission of inquiry was established, chaired by Justice Gisheru. You will remember how it went. It was a proper executive inquiry with representation and all that. Once it concluded, Parliament in its wisdom also established another inquiry, more or less on the same issue, through a select committee, the Gor Sungu inquiry. That was a parliamentary inquiry. So the first problem here is that they don't seem to be clear. An executive inquiry is not commenced in parliament. When Ichung'wah says he's going to bring an inquiry, then it cannot be an executive inquiry. It would then be a parliamentary inquiry. A parliamentary inquiry is usually much more inhibited than an executive inquiry. And a parliamentary inquiry, you don't bring a bill. A bill results in a law unless it's a motion. So when you say that there is going to bring a bill, that's already confused. You don't pass legislation on an inquiry. You pass a motion which then establishes it. So that's the first problem. The second is they are not, the third one is that they are not clear on the scope from all that I've read and heard. If you are doing an inquiry, you don't start with a conclusion. Saying it's an inquiry on state capture is a conclusion. State capture is a conclusion.
Indeed.
You know, you are starting with the conclusion. What you do is you establish an inquiry on certain institutions, on certain actions for a given period. Then they come up with the conclusion. They would conclude that perhaps there was state capture of this or that institution. Even the witnesses that you are to call, you cannot predetermine. You cannot start by saying that you'll be calling Uhuru, Matiangi, you know, the chief of defense forces. The witnesses and the culprits cannot be predetermined. So it tells you that they're completely confused. Secondly, if you establish an inquiry, you establish for a given period, and in my view, if you have to go that way, whatever period you want to start, cover it, but it must come to present day. Because there are more things to inquire about in the last 1 year than even previously. We would want to know, for example, we would want to have an inquiry on the capture of parliament by the executive. We would want to have an inquiry on police brutality during the demos, which were all lawful. We would want to understand what happened about the 10 billion fertilizer subsidy, about the 17 billion oil scandal, about the 16.5 billion edible oil scandal. We would want to know to the extent that the state, this executive, has captured the church. We would want to know what actually happened in Bomas, where we saw that there were a section of commissioners who were clearly captured and were being protected by security officials of the then DP, who was a candidate. We would want to know the role of the European ambassador, who was in Bomas, not an ambassador, who was in Bomas throughout and had full access to these commissioners, and in fact called the election in favor of Ruto, even before the IBC. We would want to know so many things to the present. We would want to know why and how you have these fundraisers where the president goes and the people around him, and they're able to produce tens of millions. Some of them were our colleagues less than a year ago and didn't have any money. Where have they gotten money that they're now producing 5 million, 10 million? You know, suddenly immoral amounts of money are being produced in a country where people are crying. So we would want to know so much that if they go that way, you will be surprised what the direction that that inquiry would take. But all in all, clearly, there's no conceptual clarity. This is supposed to be a witch hunt and a diversionary tactic.
Right. Dan Mazo, briefly, also as we're winding up.
Well, state capture, you know, is such a huge topic to be proposed for commission of that nature of inquiry. And as Honorable Tenda said, there are two types. You know, even there is one which is like judicial inquiry. You remember, like the days of the one for Kamlesh Patin. So it is not very clear what exactly Honorable Ichung'wah wants, and I think Honorable Ichung'wah is playing politics. That's why even before anything, he has already called a press conference, even before he pens down anything. How do you say that the witnesses are going to be the persons who are supposed to be suspects? It's a total confusion. So we need to know what exactly he wants to do. I don't think there's a proper roadmap. I think he'll end up with this star headline. I don't think there will be any state capture inquiry of whatever nature other than now. What we are debating here is one of the most ridiculous things of the modern times I've had. This country has serious things to deal with. We have the skyrocketing cost of living. We have the rising crime. We have a harvest now. which we don't know where to take. They don't have enough. Kenya are not prepared for this sort of harvest, and we are likely to have a lot of losses. Those are the solid things that should be dealing with. The aftermath of El Nino. You know, the roads are destroyed everywhere, and clearly you can see the country is stuck with many things. The country is stuck, you know, with what, you know, washed roads. And even when you come to the city, there are blockages. There are so many things the country has to deal with to even stabilize the shilling, to even stabilize the economy. But unfortunately, we are on a downtrend, day in, day out, and the biggest, you know, inquiry should be by the people of Kenya. Everyone should have an inquiry in their own mind, self, and then from there, we think of ways of making sure that the country prospers. So this sort of headlines, I think it just ends with there, and my good friend Ishungwa should get serious with the house business so that we can bring the country to trial.
Honorable Keenan, as we're winding up, is this a deflectionary, of course, device that he's trying to use from the hot topics that actually are in the public domain right now?
Let's start with the basics. What is the definition of state capture? State capture is a formal way in which government procedures, social norms are manipulated by government bureaucracies, government state-owned companies for individual, organized for individual gains. What Honorable Ichunga has done right now, and I'll say this is speculation. We are yet to see, the Honorable, our friends here are speculating. What Honorable Ichunga has done right now is to say his intention to come up with a bill, and it's perfectly in order. That bill will go pre-publication scrutiny, will go through the relevant committee, will go for public participation, and there are so many stages. Our friends here and the people they represent are afraid, the guilty are afraid. Wait for the bill, make your informed decisions on the floor of the House.
Move a motion or a bill.
Through the motion, incorporate your ideas, put those things that you are saying so that it addresses the past, the current, and the future, so that it acts as a preventive tool so that never again will this country be captured by particular individuals. And over the years, my friend here, Nebal, even before you were born, look at all the rich individuals in this country. All of them were at one time or the other state functionaries. Who owns the junk of land in this country? Who owns the junk of business in this country? Who owns some of the 6-star, 5-star? All of them from 1960, actually not from 1963, from 1945 when we became a colony. If these issues are addressed, why will it be a bother? So I want to commend the Honorable Ichungwa. It is thinking out of the box. It's having a creative mind. Bring that bill. We'll all be ready so that it doesn't become antagonistic. It doesn't penalize particular individuals. But it addresses the holistic problems of state capture that has faced this country since independence, that has faced this country in all the successive regimes.
Thank you.
So that we deal with that issue once and for all.
Thank you.
My closing remarks? Yes. Closing remarks on this. I am a member of parliament. I will do what I ought to do on the floor of the House. I will not complain. I want to urge my friends here, and I want to ask my good friend, the Honorable Mwanza, and in particular the Honorable Omungeni, do what the Honorable Otieno Omole Lomari does. Make your input on the legislative platform, and that is parliament. When it goes out, it becomes politics. What we are doing right now is politics. And I tend to think, my friend, there's an attempt.
Thank you.
There's an attempt to derail anything that comes from the president in his cohort, because they know ultimately this is going to wipe them out politically actually in 2027.
Thank you. Dan Mazo, your closing remarks? 10 seconds.
Well, you know, I like the comment about Honorable Otieno Omolo. He does very well on the floor of the House. But what Ruto does is to bribe the House to go against the wise wisdom of Otieno. That should stop.
I think I'll not take it. Bribing the House, I'll not take it kindly. It's a very dangerous statement.
It is.
You know, I can invoke the powers and privileges.
Thank you.
No, that's a very dangerous statement.
It is. That's what happens in the House. I can give evidence anyway. So we should stop that. We should stop the parliament capture.
Why don't you resign from that corrupt House?
We should stop that capture. That's a real state capture.
Thank you.
Let the House deal independently.
Thank you.
The respective roles of the arms of government is as follows. Parliament's role is to legislate, and only Parliament can pass legislation with the force of the law. The judiciary's role is to interpret those laws, whether they are lawful or unconstitutional, and only the judiciary can do that. The executive proposes policies and executes those policies, provided those policies are lawful. Let us respect the respective roles of each. Let the executive not try to legislate or to interpret.
Thank you. Watinda Molo, Senior Counsel, and also Member of Parliament, Rareda. Thank you for coming through. Also, Senator of Makueni, Dan Manzo, good to see you as well. Honorable Member of Eldas, Eden Kena, thank you for coming through as well. And also doing a sterling job. You've taken these men. There are 3 of them, one-on-one, right? Thank you so much. I really do appreciate for the insight and, of course, the debate that we've had very feisty this morning. Thank you for your valued company. News Diary is up next.